Good evening. I'm Celeste Hodge Groudon, President and CEO of the Alaska Black Caucus, an organization that champions the lives of Black people in the areas of health, economics, education, and justice. Thank you for joining us for tonight as we continue celebrating Black History Month and pay tribute to our first Black police chief in the 100-year history of APD, Kenneth McCoy. And though he is no longer serving in that position, he will remain Anchorage's first Black chief of police. We will connect with Ken in just a moment. Please remember to put your questions and comments in the chat. And please put yourselves on mute unless you're called on by the moderator, which is me, as these conversations are recorded and broadcast later. Allie, can we please have the brief video to get us started?
I will take in my service to this community. Members, I would like to ask for a voice vote.
Mr. Weddleton.
Yes.
Ms. Allard.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Rivera.
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. Constant.
Yes.
Ms. Zolotel.
Yes.
Mr. Dunbar.
Yes.
Mr. Perez Verdia.
Yes.
Ms. Quinn Davidson.
Absolutely yes.
That motion passes unanimously. Let me be the first to welcome Chief McCoy. Now we'll proceed to the swearing in. Chief McCoy and your family, members of APD, if you'd like to come down behind him. Welcome Justice Borgeson of the Alaska Supreme Court and retired Justice Larry Card, the first African-American judge. But before we proceed to that, I would like to welcome down three artists, Gavin, Monica, and Luke. Annika. So before we proceed to the swearing in, we're going to enjoy a brief performance to Every Voice and Sing, which is the African American National Anthem, and then the Star Spangled Banner. So please rise.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Let us march on till victory is won.
Thank you so much.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Next, we would invite Judge Card to make his testimony disappearance request.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Constant. To members of the family, members of the public, it's a great honor for me to come to see this young man, he's young to me, be appointed chief. I first met him when I was on the bench in the 90s. He was a police officer doing his job, patrolling, and he had stopped a man, and his lawyer, the man's lawyer, had filed a motion to have the evidence suppressed, which means gotten rid of, dismissed. And his basis was that the officer who had stopped him was racially motivated. And so the officer came into the court. There was a hearing. The district attorney called. The witness, Officer McCoy, comes walking in, raised his hand to take an oath, and the lawyer who was representing the accused and the state's attorney approached me and said, Judge, I think we want to dismiss this motion. We misunderstood who it was that arrested this man. Officer McCoy was obviously an African-American officer. The man who was arrested was an African-American. So the lawyer very blushed and said, we'll just move to suppress the evidence on other grounds. Thank you, Judge, and walked away. So that was my first time I had met this officer. But as I read about him later, I realized he came here like we did. My family came in 1978. I was an officer in the Air Force, had 3 little kids. My oldest was 7. And he came when he was a dependent with his dad in the Army, went to Bartlett High. My kids went to Bartlett High. And this town and this city and this state is a great place to raise a family. I know we have problems. Everybody has problems. We're people. People have problems. But this is a great place, a great town. And I've been really honored to be here. I'm honored to be here tonight for Chief McCoy. I want to thank the mayor for appointing him, and for the assembly will hopefully soon sanction that appointment and move on. He's a great man. He's a family man. He cares about his community, his family, his country. He served as an officer in the military, as I did. But this community will be greatly appreciated to have him as their chief. So, Chief, congratulations to you. To your family. You have a great family. Your mother's here, and your children, your son's an officer, and it's like in the military already. So, you know, carrying the tradition. So we thank you, and your service has been appreciated, and I know it won't change. We're a town that has 100 different languages spoken, and you understand that. You grew up here. We all appreciate that. So good luck to you. You're not just some stranger coming into this great community. You are here. You're part of it. And we will support you in every way possible. And I know you'll support this community and serve as you always have. So thank you very much. You ready? I'm ready. Yeah. Okay. Which side are you on? All right. Chief McCoy, would you please raise your right hand? Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Kenneth McCoy,
Solemnly swear or affirm
solemnly swear or affirm
that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United
the
States,
Constitution of the State of Alaska,
the Constitution of the State of Alaska,
and the Charter of Anchorage,
and the Charter of Anchorage,
and I will faithfully perform the duties
and I will faithfully perform the duties
of Anchorage Police Chief to the best of my ability.
of Anchorage Police Chief to the best of my abilities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Would you please sign here, sir? We have these others here. Just the good pen. All right. Just the good pen. I'm sorry. Chief, your grandchildren are going to ask you what mine asked me. Did you ever learn to write? Can't read your signature. I want to make sure he has enough. Here's one, too. Congratulations.
So, Chief, you're always going to be my chief. I'm just letting you know that. But just witnessing that just now brought back a lot of emotions for me. And I looked at you several different times and I could see it was pretty emotional for you too. So can you share just what was going through your mind as you viewed the video? And then we'll just take it from there. So.
Yeah, well, first of all, Celeste, thank you for having me tonight. I really appreciate you and the Alaska Black Caucus for hosting this and inviting me. And I wasn't expecting that video, and I can tell you it really, really, hits home, and the goosebumps that I got hearing the renditions being sung, and the words being spoken about me there, just really, I'm just so appreciative of this community and being given the opportunity to have served in this capacity for my whole career, for 27 years. And, it's just been an honor and privilege of a lifetime. And since I retired, I've had some time to reflect, and seeing that video tonight just brought it all home for me. And yeah, it's very heartwarming, and I just can't tell you how appreciative I am. So thank you.
Well, for me, not only was it an historical moment, and not just for me, for so many people, it was a long time coming. And you, in so many minds, were the right person at the right time to help us move the needle in a way that has never been done before. And so there were so many people. And as you know, many individuals and groups petitioned the mayor in support of you in that position, because it wasn't a personal thing, but it was a community effort. A large number of folks, groups, I can't even share the magnitude that you have on communities and how we just gravitated to you because of the beloved community that we're all striving to get to. And so can you share with us, why is it, do you believe the community supports you at such levels? I mean, why is that? What do you bring to the communities? And I say that plural, that you're so supportive.
Yeah, Celeste, I think you hit it on the head. This community is just incredible. And I love the community. And, everything I've ever done throughout my 27-year career was in service. Everything I did, every decision I made was for the betterment of the community. And I think people truly saw that. And so over the course of my career, I found my greatest sense of accomplishment and pride in helping to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community. And it was a monumental task, but it was so necessary. And I think we did a pretty good job together. It was something that I didn't do alone. There were so many allies and people along my side all this time, working hand in hand. And I think that's why the community gravitated towards me, because I was bringing the community along with me the entire way. We were working together. And the relationship between the community and the police department is not perfect. And there's still so much work to do. But I think together we made a positive impact. And I think people see that and they want it to be part of it. And that's why we came together and were able to accomplish what we did. And I just pray that our efforts continue. And I hope to continue making an impact. I intend to continue to serve this community.
So recently there was a concern that the current chief did not receive the level of support at his swearing in that you received. And I just want to clear something up, and that is, it was the community that came together to lead that effort when you were sworn in. It wasn't you and it wasn't the assembly, but it was the community that petitioned to make that time special. I mean, because again, it was a historical moment and we wanted it to be grand. The community did. And so it was the community that said, we want to make this a special time. So I just wanted to clear that up. And the other thing is, can you just share really quickly, and then we'll get into what you're currently working on and what you're doing. But can you just share a little bit about yourself? I know that we both graduated from Bartlett. That's why I'm wearing my Bartlett jersey. But can you share a little bit about who you are and where you graduated from and those kind of things, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Celeste. So I grew up in Portsmouth, Virginia, and I was the oldest of four boys. We grew up in, like I said, Portsmouth. And it was back in the 70s. My father had got out of the military, and we didn't have a lot growing up. And we lived in a predominantly African American community. My school was predominantly African American, and my father made a decision when we were young to go back into the military. He was in the military during the Vietnam era. He got out when I was a baby, but he made the decision to go back in when I was young to attempt to make a better life for our family. And so he rejoined the military. And our first assignment when he rejoined was to take our family to Germany. And so you have to think about me, this young African-American boy who knows nothing but Portsmouth, Virginia. I was 11 or 12 years old, getting plucked out of that environment and dropped into Germany. And as fate would have it, they didn't have base housing available for us at the time. So we lived in this little German community in the town of Kaiserslautern. And some of my first friends were German nationals over there. And I can tell you that experience for me was a very monumental experience of my development. Seeing people from other parts of the world and having to adapt and integrate into that and work together in an unfamiliar community, an unfamiliar territory, having to come together as a young person to survive and to achieve and to make it. It really made an impression on me. And so we lived there in Germany for 3 years, and then we came here to Alaska. My father was stationed at Fort Richardson, and I attended Bartlett High School. And Alaska immediately struck me as a wonderfully inviting community. And during those times, it was the early 80s when we got here, it seemed like everyone was from someplace else, but we were all coming together to make this community what it was. Everyone was welcome. We were building it together. And again, it was just another building that made me who I am today. This sense of togetherness and working together to build something greater. Those were things I started at a very young age. And when I was in high school, I was that kid who was involved in everything. I ran track, I was in the band, I played football, I was in junior ROTC, I did a little bit of student government. And again, I was able to navigate through all those different groups and interact with all those different individuals and thrive and bring people together and be part of something different. And I think those are the building blocks that I've really carried forward to in my time as a police officer, moving up through the ranks, and again, just continually working to bring people together and build. And again, I think I learned those lessons at a very early age. I always knew that whatever I did, race was a factor. My grandmother, when I was very young, sat me down and told me that she called me Ken Ken. She said, Ken, when you grow up, you're going to have to work twice as hard to achieve because you're a Black man in America. And she said, no matter how hard you work, there's still no guarantees, but you have to be that much better. And you can't give up and you have to keep working. And she, constantly encouraged me and made sure I, had everything I needed, but she made sure I understood what I was up against. So all those lessons from an early age, and then, like I mentioned, just my ability to interact and, welcome everyone and be part of every group that I wanted to be part of, really, again, made me who I am today. And those are the traits that I think made me a success in my role in leadership within the police department.
I'm smiling because I saw in the chat already that Key Getty chimed in and she said, I was there at the swearing in. Key, of course, with the Korean community, and a good friend of mine. And again, it just speaks to the various groups that support you. And, you know, I worry because I know that there is a lack of trust and transparency within APD. And again, I mean, I don't want you to think that all of this rests on you, but you were like this link, an array of hope. And so I wonder, do you have any thoughts of how we might be able to build a better relationship with APD and the diverse community now that you aren't there? Is there something that you might still be able to help with?
So absolutely, that's a great question, Celeste. And first of all, I intend to stay involved. And you know, I'm a board member on the Alaska Association of Chiefs of Police, and so I intend to stay involved with law enforcement and having my voice be heard on the best policies and procedures and practices for law enforcement in our state. But in regards to APD, you know, APD is a great department with incredibly dedicated people. However, the department's not perfect. We know we're not perfect. And I know police chiefs from all across the country who are friends of mine. I've seen other police departments. And I can tell you, we have a good police department and we should be proud of that. But with that pride, we have to roll up our sleeves and work together to become better. And that's why it's so important that we get the body cameras for the police department. That was something I was working on, a program that I'm a big supporter of, and it's something that, you know, we have to, you know, continue working on. We cannot allow that to fall to the wayside now that I've retired. And the reason I push so hard for those cameras is because we know they will help build trust between law enforcement and the community. The cameras will hold bad officers accountable, and it will protect our good officers. And the first step with that is having a good policy to ensure that the recordings are happening, they're being retained. And along with that, I feel the public should have some level of access to see those videos. And I know the municipal legal department doesn't agree with that. And they feel we can't do that based on privacy law. However, I think that's a conversation that we need to keep pushing and that we need to have. But until we get there, the most important thing is that we get those cameras and we get them on our officers and start building and ensuring that trust with the community. And in addition to the cameras, we need to make sure the department gets all the technology they need to ensure that we have impartial policing going on in our community. You know, when we're talking about technology, we need to know who our officers are stopping and issuing tickets to, and where are our officers encountering the public. And I can tell you, the Anchorage Police Department, our data is lacking. We cannot, as the chief of police, I cannot, you know, with a few keystrokes, get that type of information to see are our actions disproportionately affecting communities of color. That's something we need to improve upon. And so as a community, when we see the Anchorage Police Department asking for funding for data and technology in the form of CAD, which is computer-aided dispatch, and records management, those are the tools that are needed by the police department to adequately collect that data. And we also need to demand that the public, that we have access to see that data, to see what's occurring in our communities and so forth. So again, you know, the Anchorage Police Department is a great department, and I know they're going to continue to lead the way in law enforcement in our state and in the country. But at the same time, we as the community need that transparency, and we really need to hold our leaders accountable to ensuring that those needs are met.
So I know there's a lot of questions coming in the chat, and we'll get to those in a minute, but I know Chief, my chief of like forever, I know we've had conversations about racism within the Anchorage Police Department, and I just wonder what your thoughts on that are. Is there racism within APD?
So, these are incredibly divisive times for our nation, our community, and the police department's not immune from what we see throughout the nation and throughout our community. The department's a microcosm of that environment, and so, as I discussed, there are incredible people at the Anchorage Police Department who, day in and day out, risk everything to protect this community. And there's always, people with, ill intent in their heart, but the vast majority of people are good, well-intentioned, hardworking people who care, and they're doing the best they can. And again, that's where, good policies, good technology will ensure that people who are bad actors are held accountable, and they are the minority in law enforcement, but we know they have an incredible negative impact when they act. And that's why it's so important to have strong leaders in law enforcement, have rigorous background vetting in the hiring process, psychological testing to root out those types of individuals before they ever put on a badge. And if they do get on the police department and they're identified, we need to get rid of them. Right? We cannot tolerate it. And again, I'm confident in the leadership at APD that they would not tolerate that type of conduct. And as I mentioned, the department's not perfect. There's so much work that still needs to be done. But I think the last few years have been a learning and growth process for everyone. There's some things that have happened in our country that have awakened us all. And I think we've all done some self-reflection, and we truly see what's going on. And now it's time for us to work better or work together to be better.
So thank you for that. I know that diverse communities would be forthcoming and saying that there is racism within APD. And in fact, there are employees that would share the same comments. And so I just wanted to ask that question to you, but I'm thankful that you will be in a position now where you can help the community and APD to work to resolve those issues. And I do know that, are you still going to be serving on the Anchorage Community Police Relations Task Force?
I plan to stay involved. Yes, I really want to stay involved with our community groups to help, guide as best I can in those areas. So yes.
And so for those that don't know, the Anchorage Community Police Relations Task Force is a task force that's comprised of members of the community and law enforcement. And we work to resolve issues from community members. And so for those that didn't know that. And so I'm going to pause for a moment so that we can respond to some questions in the chat. And so I will defer to Allie.
Hi, everyone, and hello, Chief McCoy. Thanks so much for being here. We're getting lots of great questions in the chat. So everybody that's here in the audience, please do keep them coming. The chat is the right place to direct them. And to kick us off with audience questions, the Alaska Black Caucus has recently discussed the need for people of color to be involved in policing and school security. What does taking that call and stepping into those spaces mean to you?
Wow, so that's a great question. And as far as policing inside the schools, we have I still refer to myself being part of the Anchorage Police Department, but the Anchorage Police Department has a great relationship with the Anchorage School District and our school resource officer program. And, I remember many years ago, and our program's been around a while, I was talking to some community activists from Atlanta, Georgia. And they were not in favor of the school resource officer program. And we had a really good conversation. And I talked to them about our program here in Anchorage, and they were amazed. We approach our program not from a safety or a policing standpoint. It's from a community engagement, mentorship standpoint, where the officers in the schools are there to help mentor and be role models and to connect with the young people and build relationships and learn from one another. And a very good side benefit of that relationship is having that safety component in the schools. So school safety is the top priority of the police department and the school district working together. That's where we think the school resource officer program is so valuable to us. But again, when I look at the program, I look at it from a community engagement standpoint and a way for young people and police to connect and to learn about one another and to build a relationship that endures. So when the young people are adults, they know a little more about the police, and they actually know police officers and had the opportunity to engage with them and to talk to them and to learn about them. And at the same time, our police officers get to see young people and learn with them and to hear about their experiences and get a better understanding. So I think it's a win-win for everyone. And like I said, a side benefit from all of that is we have officers who are prepared to ensure the safety of our children. So I think the model we have is serving us well, and I'd really like to see that continue.
Thank you for that. And Margot Elmy is also on. So she also asked to share your thoughts about SROs. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add before we move on?
No, I really think that's really encapsulates it. Again, it's a great program. I've spoken to Margot, hi Margot, and many of the school board members about our program. And I think we all recognize the benefits of it. And I think we will continue to work together to ensure that we do everything we can to keep our children safe.
So Kim, let me hop in here because there's a lot of body cam questions. Where is the body camera? What's the status of those body cams?
So we are still working on the policy. So there's going to be a community meeting coming up. I apologize, I don't know the date, but it's coming up in a week or so, a couple of weeks from now. It's a joint session with the Anchorage Assembly Public Safety Committee, the Public Safety Advisory Committee, APD, and the community. And it's an opportunity for us to present the policy as it's current in its current draft form, to have a conversation about it, to get some additional feedback. And I believe that the legal department is going to be there also to discuss the release of video portion of it. That seems to be a hot topic. As I mentioned earlier, my goal was for us to build a policy that had some automatic release of video to the community and embedded in there. And again, it's all about transparency for me. And the videos, a big portion of that is for trust and accountability. And for the community to have trust, they have to have some level of access to seeing what's on these cameras. And so my hope was for us to get to some reasonable ground where we were automatically releasing video in critical incidents and some other different scenarios. And so that's kind of where we are right now. This will be a big conversation with the Assembly, the police department, and the public, along with the legal department, to kind of hash out some of those finer points. And then hopefully we can move forward from there and finalize a policy.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that date is February 18th. And I know Rich, who is the ABC co-chair of the Justice Committee, is on. So Rich, if you could put the date for that meeting. Yeah, it is February 18th from 1 to 3 p.m. That's in the chat. So thank you for that. So Chief, we're going to come back to some more questions regarding APD, but tell us about your new position. What are you doing? What is your role? I mean, your title, and how can we tap into you even though you're over there?
Great. So I'm really excited about my new role at Providence Hospital. And I'm going to be starting tomorrow. Tomorrow's my first day on the job, but I'm going to be the new Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for Providence, Alaska. I will be the first DEI officer for Providence, Alaska. And it is just an incredible opportunity for me. Providence is an amazing organization, and it's something that I wasn't expecting to do after I retired. But when the opportunity presented itself, I had the chance to kind of sit back and think about it for a little bit. And I was like, I'm going from Chief of Police to Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, and trying to figure out what that looks like. And the more I thought about it, what I realized was I've been doing that type of work my whole career, working with the community, working as a mentor, advocate for others, helping to lead an organization. Those are a lot of the qualities and duties that I will continue doing. And after thinking about it and realizing that I've been doing this work for a long time, I made the decision that Providence was the right fit for me. And when I made the decision to retire, the most important thing for me was to continue making an impact in the community. And as I mentioned, Providence will give me the opportunity to continue building relationships with the community to address concerns specifically of our BIPOC community and other minority groups, but specifically related to healthcare equity, from things such as ensuring that there's equal access to treatment and ensuring that there are favorable outcomes. And as I mentioned, Providence is a great organization that values diversity. And so internally, I will be able to work with the many caregivers of that organization to ensure that there's diversity represented at all levels of the organization, and to help ensure that there's a inclusive work environment for all the people working at Providence Hospital, while at the same time maintaining relationships in the community and ensuring that our BIPOC community has that access to medical care that is so much needed.
Well, I know we can't have you everywhere, but you are definitely needed there as well, because health equity is huge. And I just think about inequities, let me just say, for people of color when it comes to health. So congratulations to you on your new position there as well. And so, Allie, let's go back to the chat because I know how we get sometimes when we don't get enough questions responded to. So, Allie, another question, please.
Sure thing. Just so that everybody knows, we are adding some information in the chat about that meeting on body cameras and encourage you to testify. We'll also be posting that information in our upcoming newsletter, Boldly Committed, so you can keep an eye out in your email inbox for that information. And so maybe going back to, and kind of a combination, I suppose, of your roles as chiefs across very important community institutions. As we talk about the Anchorage Police Department, and I would also argue Providence Hospital needing the community's help and in increasing the diversity of the staff. What are some actionable ways that both those institutions and the Anchorage community can support the pipeline for people of color taking jobs in those organizations?
Oh, great question. Thanks, Allie. And, getting our young people of color interested in these roles is so important. And one of the first steps of getting our young people interested is for them seeing people that look like them doing these jobs and in these roles. And that was something that I was very intentional about when I was with the Anchorage Police Department, getting out so young people can see that an African-American man can work in this profession and elevate to the highest levels. And I intend to do the same thing for Providence Hospital, getting out, talking about our diverse people who are serving in those capacities, showing our young people that there are opportunities available for them. They can achieve. We just have to, show them the way. And another important piece for me is to work with our diverse individuals who are already within the organizations and to help encourage and mentor and guide them to help lead and move up and start directing these organizations in a more equitable and inclusive manner. So I have an external and an internal lens that I'm going to be looking at. But we need the community's help. The police department needs the community's help. The hospital needs the community's help. And the way you can help is if you see or identify a young person, encourage them to go into these fields. These are honorable professions. We need good, young, diverse people being willing to step into these roles. Things will never change unless we make the change. And we have to be willing to take those first steps. And the way we get our young people there is we have to encourage them. Like I told you my grandmother did when I was young. She encouraged me to do whatever it was I wanted to do. And she encouraged me, ensuring me that I would succeed. And I believed her. And no matter how hard it got, I continued pushing on. And that's what our young people need. We have to encourage them. We have to guide them into these fields. And then when the going gets tough, we have to be there with them. And we have to keep pushing and letting them know there will be a better day and they will make it.
So thank you for that question, Allie. I also want to address a question in the chat, but before I do that, I would like to know what you think about community policing. I think it's so important that law enforcement, police are comfortable or they're familiar with the community that they're serving. And I just wonder what your thoughts are on community policing.
Thanks, Celeste. Community policing is one of the most important aspects of what we do. The police cannot protect and serve a community if they are viewed as, or if they see themselves as an occupying army there to keep control or to direct the day-to-day of the public. The police have to see themselves as part of that community, and the community has to embrace those officers as being there with them, helping to protect and being part of that community. So with community policing, we want our officers to know the members of the community they serve. We want the community members to know the officers, and for there to be that type of relationship and engagement. And over the last number of years, we were very intentional about trying to build those opportunities for the police and the community to come together in non-enforcement situations where they can build upon that relationship, where they can get to know one another, to where that trust is built, and to where both sides see each other as human beings, and are able to, bridge those gaps and work together. And like I said, we're very intentional about building those opportunities with, different, events that we would hold, coffee with a cop, or different events throughout the community where we would have officers attend, and just trying to bring people together, getting people to know each other and get a better understanding about them. But again, community policing has to be a priority for us, and it's definitely something that must continue.
And I appreciate what you shared about hiring. But for me, it's equally important to make sure you have a system in place for maintaining those that you bring on board. So just wanted to throw that out there as well. Also, there's a question in the chat, and I know there are a lot of individuals wanting to know the response to this question. So before I ask Chief the question, I want our viewers to place in the chat, what and where were you? What did you think when you heard that the chief was actually retiring? What were your thoughts? Where were you? For me, I was in North Carolina and my phone was just ringing off. I was on a Zoom meeting, visiting my dad, and it was going crazy that Chief was retiring. I was upset. I was just distraught. And so please put it in the chat what your thoughts were. And so, Chief, I'm going to ask you this question. Chief McCoy, please share with us the reason for your, and it says, abrupt retirement. It seems strange to quit only 6 months after working so hard to reach the pinnacle of your career in community service. And before you respond to that, I know personally, you were happy. We were happy. We were just, on this huge high. And so in your own words, you can respond to the question as you see fit.
Great. Well, thanks, Celeste. And I know that this is a question that's been on everyone's mind, and there's not one specific reason. And there are a number of factors that went into my decision. A very, very tough decision, from politics to organizational priorities to simply some of my beliefs and values played a factor in my decision. There were long-term career goals and opportunities and family considerations that played a part. And so ultimately, it was a decision that I made. It was the hardest decision of my career, but it was 100% my decision. And it was so hard because there's so much unfinished business and potential for growth in the area of police community relations. And it was a job that I truly, truly loved, being able to make an impact daily. But for all of the said reasons, it was an extremely tough decision that I had to make For those of you who truly know me, they know, you know, that this was the right decision at the right time, as hard as it was. But again, it wasn't one particular thing. And when I look at it and when I think over it, I know a lot of people were disappointed that our time together with me as chief was short. But when I think about my career, it wasn't just during that window of time that I started connecting with the community and started to try to make an impact. This is something that I've been doing my entire career, is bringing people together, making an impact as best we can. And that is something that I've always done. And it's something that I plan to continue to do. And so, although we close this chapter, there will be a next chapter. And I promise that I will continue to be the community's chief, and I will do everything I can to continue to bring us together and make this community as great as it can be.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I know we have a lot more questions in the chat, and I'm just going to read one because it just stopped here, but here's a response. And then there's more added, so I lost that one, but I'm trying to get to, here's one that says, so disappointed and assume there was a backstory we may never know, but assume it was a stand for integrity. And another one that says, my heart dropped and felt lost, but I believe one must do what you must do to have peace and still serve with integrity. So there's a yes, our chief is what they're putting in the chat. So I know our time has come to an end, and we could go on and on and on. But I just want to say thank you to forever my chief, Ken McCoy. And of course, to each of you for joining us this evening. To our caucus members and allies group, thank you for your continuous support. If you'd like to join our great organization or link to the Allies for Change group within the Alaska Black Caucus, please visit us at the alaskablackcaucus.com. Just for your information, there's an RFP currently out on the streets to begin phase 1 of renovation work at the Equity Center. Yes, ABC's permanent home in downtown Anchorage. We hope you return next Sunday for Combating Racism and Anti-Semitism and Bigotry, moderated by Weta Morrison, with panelists Ian Hartman, Ed Wesley, and former Mayor Ethan Berkowitz. So until next time, good night, everybody.
Good night.